Hello, hello. Welcome to the PG-ish podcast. I'm Erin with your parental guidance to help you grow yourself as a parent and raise healthy, happy, and successful humans. Hey friend, if you want to support PG-ish, the best way is to check out one of our sponsors, BetterHelp Online Therapy. BetterHelp will support you and your family in prioritizing mental health and well-being. With anxiety and depression on the rise, reach out to a certified therapist from the comfort of your own home. BetterHelp will match you with the most suitable therapist within 48 hours or less, so no need to wait weeks and weeks for help. Save 10% with the code PGish. You can find a link in the show notes to access that. Speaking of which, did you see the latest CDC's report about teen girls? It's rather depressing, especially since I have two preteen daughters. But the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey states that teen girls are confronting the highest levels of sexual violence, sadness, and hopelessness that have ever been reported. 3 in 5 girls felt persistently sad and hopeless, a marker for depressive symptoms, in 2021, up nearly 60% from 2011. This just about breaks my heart. I feel for these young girls, and my heart aches for my own daughters, knowing there are so many things I can't relate to growing up in a world, technologically speaking, that looks very different than my teenage life. While yes, the noise has increased, the skills to break these barriers hasn't changed. Honestly, I believe they're just simply not practiced. The simplicity of them seem like common sense, yet apparently they're not so common after all. In fact, the other day, I was trying to be funny on TikTok, and complete disclaimer, I'm a newbie and I still do not understand TikTok whatsoever. But I was stating a fact in one of my posts about being a tired mom, kind of poking fun at Gen Z. You know, folks in their 20s without kids who were complaining about being tired. And holy moly, the backlash I received. I had no idea how many trolls would voice their opinions. And not just that, but be so exceptionally cruel. I was taken aback and honestly took it kind of personally. Now, I consider myself an empathetic person, and knowing my intentions weren't harmful in any fashion, yet received as such, kind of broke me. 1, it taught me that I need to communicate differently. And 2, if I was taken aback despite knowing better, I can't imagine what that kind of online bullying does to a teenager's psyche. And yet, this is only one microcosm of the world that our teens live in. Michele Borba is a psychologist and an author of Unselfie and Thrivers. Now, Unselfie addresses the decrease in empathy in children from toddler to teen, where Thrivers identifies the markers of accomplishments, which are essential character strengths of confidence, empathy, self-control, integrity, curiosity, perseverance, and optimism. This clip I'm about to share with you shares simple tools to interrupt and break down the barriers that prevent us from spreading kindness and empathy. Take a listen.
Empathy. The ability to feel with another human being. And why would you want to empathize? Oh, let me count the ways, folks. Number 1, it's very highly correlated to predicting our real happiness and success. It what also activates our heart, so we're more likely to step in, be courageous, be compassionate, be contributing members of society so we can re-evolutionize our world. But it's also the best antidote we have right now to stopping bullying, ending racism, and opening up the doors to each other. It's our hope for humanity, and that's why I'm concerned. You see, we have a serious crisis from zip codes from coast to coast, and that is in the last 30 years, today's kids are 40% lower in empathy, and in the same 30 years, their narcissism rates have increased 58%. Call it the selfie syndrome, folks, but what we're dealing with is self-absorption kills empathy. What we need to be doing is raising unselfies, not selfies. Number 2, we need to start putting up close and personal on our agendas empathy, because to me it's the best seeds we can bring to really restore humanity. And it's my contention that empathy is anything other than soft and fluffy. It is an integral, essential piece that we have got to start realizing we can cultivate. Because the other best thing about all of this is that though we're hardwired to care, don't think it's innate. We need to exercise our empathy muscles. So now the next question is, how? How do we open up our hearts? You see, we also know we're more likely to empathize with those in our own social hub, people we're familiar with. So how do we open our hearts to them? Or even better yet, how do we break down prejudice and stop hate? Once again, it was kids who had the answer, but this time it was a most unique summer camp. Now, picture it, because it's kind of Norman Rockwell-ish. It has a sparkling lake. It has the woods. It's in Otisville, Maine. It's a camp like we all went to that has archery and canoeing, but what's different are the campers. They're 14 to 16-year-old teens. They've been selected for their leadership abilities, and they're flown in from all over the world in war-torn areas. Now, just imagine. They come in from Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Egypt, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, as well as the United States and Britain. And they come in for 3 weeks to this camp, and which was founded 30 years ago by somebody I think is a real visionary. His name was John Wallach, a reporter who said, forget the adults, we're never going to get to them. The conflicts are going to keep going. How about we reach the kids? We get to the kids earlier, and maybe they can be a seed who can go back and plant peace in their own countries as a future leader. Sounds idealistic, but it's working. 30 years later, they've been tracking kids, University of Chicago. And a very large, significant portion not only have made friends with the other side, a person you have been taught to hate your entire life, but 30 years later, they're continuing to advocate for peace. So why does it work? First, it is called the Seeds of Peace International Camp, and it is a miracle place. When I visited, what I saw instantly was everything from the activities to the atmosphere, to the skills these kids were learning. It was all about strengthening human connection, everything. The other thing that I saw that was over and over again is that they were breaking out their social hubs. So the kids were starting to stand over and meet somebody who was them. For instance, they ate, they slept, they also talked together. They learned skills that opened up your hearts. That's the thing we may also be forgetting to do. Empathy is made up of habits that we need to work on. What did these kids learn? Communicating, collaborating, perspective taking, so they could step into the other person's shoes. One of the most amazing things I saw at this camp were signs everywhere that were taped to the doors and on the woods that said, stop and talk. Stop and talk. And I looked at those signs and go, my God, they should be mandatory in our homes, our schools, our communities, because it's the first step. You got to be aware the other person exists. But what these kids were doing was practicing empathy habits. See, you first develop empathy, then you practice it. And if you practice it enough, then you can live it. Slowly, the kids said, very slowly, your heart begins to open up. It takes time, they said. It takes time because you've been taught your whole life to hate that guy. But because you keep practicing those habits, pretty soon the moment happens. I said, what's the moment? He said, the moment is the miracle stuff. Your heart opens and you see the person not as an enemy, but another human being. It's a real miracle. The teens also said, when you leave here, you're changed from the inside out. You'll never be the same. I saw the miracle that day, this. And I sat and looked at this and go, my God, this is also what we all should be doing. Can you imagine a more peaceful society when we practice habits of heart? And those kids would also say the key to keep in mind is that the real miracle is practicing them. The motto of this camp is the way life should be, the way life could be. And I looked at it and went, that's exactly what we could be doing, practicing those habits so they open our hearts. But the idea we're spreading is we got to practice habits of we. Empathy is what makes us better people. Empathy is the best investment we can make for our future. Empathy. Not technological power, industrial strength, and military might, but human capital. What we need to do is advance people skills. And that's what we seem to be lying dormant with these days. We're putting everything into everything else but ourselves. Now, there's hope, folks. There's hope. We can make a difference. I know it because I've seen it. But what the kids would tell you to do is just remember 3 ideas worth spreading. Idea number 1 is practice habits of heart. Just remember those habits, but keep practicing them over and over again. Think of empathy as just we, not me, but also think of empathy as a verb. It's real, it's meaningful, it's active, but it's always face-to-face connection. And finally, do one more thing. Just start with one. If you start with one, your heart will open. It will continue to. And the most amazing thing, you pass it on to another person. Compassion is courageous for the way life could be and should be.
It starts with you, my friend. Easy to think that smiling at a stranger or lending a helping hand won't do much good. But think again. So much can be lost in translation or misinterpreted through judgment, presumptions, or a suspected side-eye. Communication is key, yet we so often take the shortcut and assume or simply fail to communicate. So much is left unsaid in our haste or out of fear that false narratives permeate our lives and are leading a lot of kids to depression and even suicide. If the state of our teenage girls isn't a cry to action, to slow down, look each other in the eye, and be honest with one another, I don't know what is. Yet will we take it seriously? I don't know. I want to hope so. We can't wait for the other person to take the first step. It has to start with you and me in our homes, talking to our kids, practicing kindness and empathy with each other. Practicing that kindness to the Costco cashier, to our neighbors. At the end of the day, we all want to be seen, known, and loved, bottom line, yet we overcomplicate it. Take a chance today to open up and share a smile or a kind word or a helping hand, because you never know whose life you might change. If you want to learn more about Michele, watch the full talk or check out either of her books, Thrivers or Unselfie. Check the links in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today. And if you're enjoying PG-ish, find me on Instagram at PG-ish Parenting and now also on TikTok at the same name. And please subscribe and leave a comment or review on Apple Podcasts so that more parents can grow alongside their kiddos. See you next time, my friend.